All right. What's up? It's Jackson from First Class Business, and I'm excited to dive into this topic. It's been an awesome, crazy, amazing week. There's so many great things going on. So I want to talk about this subject about what it is that is going to make you a little bit uncomfortable, possibly, or that you may not want to admit when you're struggling with this particular concept. So I want to talk to you about going from a mentality of surviving to a mentality of thriving. So, unlocking real power begins with just that. So let's talk about that. When it comes to survival mode, basic instincts, usually you think of like animals, but in reality, we all have those instincts within us because we are all animals. And it's so important that we learn how to shift our behaviors in order to become a person that thrives. Anybody can thrive, by the way, for a moment. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about sustained thriving. I'm talking about learning to do what it takes to be able to keep going. So for instance, let's say that you watch a video that inspires you, right? You leave the theater or you leave the YouTube channel inspired to take action, and then bam, like you just all of a sudden you feel yourself say no, and your mind blocks you, your heart blocks you, and you just can't move forward, right? Have you ever been there? Or maybe you've gone to a conference and you've been at that conference, and there's all these messages and everything's cool, and you put your hands in the air, you do lots of cool things, like things that you normally wouldn't do, and you feel good. And then whatever happens, I mean, it could be a day later, it could be a minute later, it could be an hour later, and then it's almost like this like sinking feeling sets in, and it's like that person that was within you, it's like they're falling outside of you, and like you're becoming somebody new who's like, nope, not going to do that. I'm going to go back to everything that I know and what I was used to before. Sometimes this is referred to as going outside of your comfort zone. That's true. That's accurate. It's important to learn those concepts. Sometimes it's about mindset, and there's trauma that can get in the way of that. There's PTSD. There's a lot of things. There's depression that can get in the way of your ability to thrive. But I'm not talking about becoming somebody who thrives at all times and all moments either, right? Those are the two extremes. The person who's perfect at it, which most people can't relate to, or I would think that none of us can relate to, for being honest about that. And there's a person who, only thrives on rare occasions or like with the assistance of others. So why is that? Why is it that sometimes we can access the ability to thrive and not others? I'm curious if anybody has any ideas on that. Leave a comment. Maybe I'll do another video on that particular piece. But there's things that I have to learn about this too. I'm not always thriving. I'm not 100% of the time thriving. There are plenty of times where I get in my ruts, or where I get into a position where I don't want to move forward. The other day, I told my team, I'd worked really late the night before. I think it was on Sunday. A lot of ideas came to me. And so on Sunday, I spent the night working until like 5 a.m. And it was 5:15 in the morning, I think, when I went to bed. So I got up from my meetings and I told my team at 10, I was like, listen, guys, y'all know I was sending you messages all night. I'm pretty transparent with my team. I don't schedule things in advance for them. I just send it when I send it. They know to have their notifications off, right? They keep a boundary on their life so that we don't actually interrupt each other. But if you're in the groove and you're moving, like, hit it. So I came into that call and I said, listen, guys, I'm worn out. I am going to take a nap, and I'm going to take a nap for a few hours. And I ended up taking a nap for like 4 or 5 hours because I needed it. It was not a moment to thrive. It was a moment to survive. It was a moment to regenerate my soul, my body, my heart. I knew what I needed in that moment. And so I took that. And then it still took me a little bit of time to kind of like get back into it. I had to do a lot of things to get out of that little rut. Some of those things that I do may help you. Emmeline, what's up, Emmy? How are you? It's so good to see you. It says, great being here with you and listening to your wisdom, Jackson. Oh my goodness. Emmy is packed full of wisdom. If you have the chance to connect with her, you absolutely should. She runs TCI Champions. It's a phenomenal coaching program. Her and her business partner are like out of this world amazing people. So make sure you connect with her. She's got lots of advice and help for how to go from surviving and thriving, her own take. That's the other cool thing, guys. Thriving also happens more consistently when you expand your mind to allow others to influence it. I love the quote that the most expensive thing that you can have is a closed mind. Whoa! Unicorn of all unicorns is here. There's Daniel Knight. So Daniel Knight and Emmy, I just introduced them because they're both awesome networkers. They're all about this idea of expansion. So wow, what a time to show up, Dan. And he runs Unicorn Universe. Definitely worth checking out if you're looking for like fantastic connections and those golden connections that can connect you with like all the people that you need in order to take it to the next level. So here we are, that thriving aspect. Again, opening your mind. A confused mind. That's not good either. But a closed mind is the most expensive thing you can own. Well, one of the things about expanding your mind is talking to people and saying, you know what can you teach me? Adam Tank, you're amazing too. I'm glad you're here. Wow, Adam, you really need to know Daniel and Emmy. And I wouldn't just say that, guys. I'm not just saying that. Like, sorry if I leave you out if I do see a comment, but Adam Tank is one of my best friends since kindergarten, and he's an amazing entrepreneur. And Emmy and Daniel have been two of the people that I've met over the last several months that have influenced me in a way that's like, whoa, like we have to keep our network strong and together. So seriously, Adam, whenever you have the time, whenever you're back from, I think you went to Germany or something, but whenever you have the time to connect with them, I would love to see what they could contribute and add to these water projects you're working on to help people. They're just, anyway, love you all. You guys are all amazing. So, and that's, again, one of the things that helps me thrive, right? Feeding off the energy of those around me and making space for what you can contribute, right? So it's kind of like having different math teachers. I see a lot of coaches out there that have such limiting beliefs. They're so scared of others. They're so stuck in survival mode that they almost like treat you like you're a vampire, right? Like in Buffy, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and they're like, no, go away. All right, you're a coach. I'm a coach. I don't need you in my life. Or you got somebody who needs a coach or has a coach, and they've got a coach who's convinced them that that's the only coach they need. And so when you approach them, or when I see coaches approaching them and they're like, oh, I already have a coach. I always talk to people about, I always find that fun. It's hard not to laugh when somebody says that anymore, because I always repaint the paradigm for them. To some, oh, well, you probably know LeBron James or Tom Brady. How many coaches do you think they have? The ones with the biggest survival techniques. And again, don't be offended by this. Like, try to embrace this. Try to see it just as a new perspective. You don't have to be intimidated, but try to see it from a new perspective and angle. I see people who say, oh, they're good enough. They don't need a coach. Not true. That's why Allen Iverson's career went down. He said, practice. I don't need to practice. And then he hit his roof. Unfortunately, he's finding out new ways to reestablish himself, but not in basketball. So with these other guys, they have dozens of coaches. You don't get it. Like Tom Brady has a financial coach. He probably has a budgeting coach. He has a nutrition coach. He has a coach who shows him how to throw the ball. He has coaches who help him run better. He has coaches who are like supercharging his health somehow. I mean, for crying out loud, I don't know how old he is, still playing the game of football and still probably the best quarterback in the game to this day, right? If you have a different vote than that, by all means, share it. I'd love to see it. But that is insane. And that's possible because of the amount of people he allows to influence his mind and his heart and his actions that are the right people. Let's be clear, right? You would not want, I don't think Tom Brady would want to take throwing advice from his nutrition coach, right? Or, maybe his wife is his best coach and helper in terms of running his household, but should she be his agent for his business? And does he need to go to her to get permission to spend his money? Probably not, right? There are these strange concepts that we grasp onto as human beings, and we do so because of fear. We do so because we're surviving. We do so because so-and-so said to do it, and we didn't want to do the intellectual research ourselves. We don't want to put in the tough work that it takes to really understand the principles behind the advice, right? But advice is different from everybody that it comes from, and it's usually not like a one-size-fits-all answer or a black and white scenario. So if you have that black and white scenario mentality, I highly recommend you learn to check that at the door when you're in conversations with people who might be able to expand the way you look at life, right? That's kind of scary though. Like if you have a tendency to make bad decisions, that can be hard. It's like, well, who do you trust in that case, right? Well, I think when it comes to trust, you got to look at the virtues. You got to take a little bit more time. You got to be willing to not make fast decisions. You got to be willing to slow down, right? Go for a walk and think about things. And when I say think about things, ask good questions. If you don't know the questions you should be asking, perhaps turn to a third party mentor. What that means is turn to a friend that's smart and goal oriented and that has some success, or somebody that could mentor you, that's not going to sell you, that has no financial gain in the equation, and say, hey, I met this person who's really smart and they've told me some great things. What do you think I should do with it? Right. And let that mentor expand your mind. Let that mentor play ball with you and help you think through the strategy and the process and the red flags that might exist. It's so important that you learn how to think critically and make decisions the right way. That is one of the most important aspects of shifting towards power, of going from surviving to thriving. Now, granted, you're still going to have challenges in life. Does that mean that you're not thriving? No, my goodness, everybody has challenges in life. One time I heard Robert Kiyosaki talk about that in a way that was very humbling. Nobody heard it because they were so excited about the hype, and he moves on fast from the emotion. But he was talking about his bankruptcy that happened recently in the last couple of years. And he said, more money, more problems, with more heart and more pain than any of the pleasure I heard him speaking about. Why? Because I was listening to it. I could hear what he was saying. I could feel inside what he was really trying to get across. He didn't want to scare everybody off. That wouldn't help anybody. He wasn't trying to make everybody poor and say there's no value to being rich. He was trying to explain the reality without scaring the living crap out of everybody and saying, listen, the higher you climb, the harder your fall is going to be. But be ready to get back up and do it again, right? You got to keep going. And he can't talk too much about that without bringing the audience down. Well, I get it. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. So let's see here what we got. Emmy, Daniel Knight. Yep, we support everyone who are for others like you. Oh, thank you. And I hope that's for Daniel as well. I know it is. We always have something to learn from others. Yes, we do. And so it may come from the most unexpected resource. So I was studying somebody I had never met today based on, and I'm not, his name was Jason. I remember his last name, but he's a very prominent figure. And it was really interesting to study his content because he's ultimately got like some super secrets when it comes to content writing and making sure your messaging is clear. And so it's a course that I might buy for one of my copywriters, and I'm still evaluating the process because his paradigm is so different from mine. Like his ability to connect with people is different, but I can tell that his values and his ethics are slightly different than mine, but that doesn't make mine better than his. That's key, right? When you can learn to become self-aware enough to recognize that we all have different ethics. And while it makes sense that we all believe in the golden rule, that do unto others as you'd want them to do unto you and stuff like that. Like at the same time, the nuances, the devil's in the details, as is the godly, as is the divine, right? The divine is in those details too. So you have to dive in deep in order to go from surviving to thriving. You have to take the time and have the discipline to do that. Now, if you're starving, then you gotta get food, right? If you don't have water, you gotta get water. But most of us don't know how to deal well with the problems that we're going through. Most of us don't know how to. We want to stay there in that survivor mode, when in reality, you know what? Maslow's hierarchy of needs is important, but what I found in my life, some of your greatest transcendent moments come when you're in an absolute foxhole of war. What does that mean? The foxhole of war, they always said that there's no atheist in a foxhole, and that's a little bit hyperbolic. I don't think it's fair to say, but ultimately, when people were in trenches, that's what they called the foxhole back in the war times, and you got bullets flying all around you and grenades going off and missiles and stuff. That's a really good time to pray and hope there's a God. Right? You might die. You might not see your children again. There's a lot of difficulties that you're facing. So there's also stories of people who get into that moment. That's the first time that they actually connect with a higher power, right? Or their best, most valiant self, right? Comes out and they become this brave warrior in those moments. So while I love Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and if you haven't heard of these things, like take notes, just take notes of what you can. Don't worry about or like absorbing everything I'm saying. You have a different path than everybody else. I know that Emmy and Daniel and Adam on here, like anything I say is a checklist for them. Like, got that, because they've been studying, this stuff themselves. They've been coaching these things themselves. They've made the mistakes to earn the rewards. They've had the failures to accompany the victories that they have. So, but if you don't know those things, right? Milk before meat. You got to take it one bite at a time, and just chew on what you can. But be happy with where you're at, please. I hope you are. I hope you're able to be satisfied with who you are. And if you're not, then maybe it's time to look at things like guilt and shame, and see what Jordan Peterson has to say about things like that. Or, see what other coaches are offering in relation to how do you overcome guilt and shame. You're going to hold yourself back forever if you keep those anchors on yourself, if you keep tying yourself down for past mistakes or past problems. So I'm going way across the spectrums here. Why? Because we're talking about unlocking that power. We're talking about surviving, which is the exact opposite of what thriving is. And so again, can somebody in survival mode thrive for a minute? Yes, but be careful, because that's the first step to like rookiehood of thriving, right? Is you thrive and then bam, all of a sudden you're failing again, and you're back to that reality of like, man, I was a hero in that moment, but now I'm scared to talk to that girl. I was a hero in the moment and now I'm scared to admit to my boss that I made a mistake. Like, what the heck? I could go out to war for my country, but I'm struggling to adapt to a corporate environment and relate to people over simple things. You would think it would be easy for those skills to transition, but skills don't always transition like that. Talents, gifts, behaviors, they don't always transition as smoothly as we would like them to. And when our expectation meter goes really high, where we're like expect to be awesome at something and then we fail, like we disappoint ourselves, and next thing you know, we're suffering an extreme heartache. One of my favorite quotes, I have three favorite quotes I can think of. This is one of the three, and it's from William Shakespeare. What a brilliant individual, way before these times, right? Pre-motivational speaker, guru, and memes and all that available. He said, expectation is the root of all heartache. Write that down before you dismiss it. Write it down and look at it. It took me a while to really digest it, but expectation is the root of all heartache. I'm not talking about desires. I'm not talking about what you want. I'm not talking about hope. I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I believe that the opposite of hope is expectation. Even though they mirror each other, it's like the virtue and the vice, right? The virtue of hope is I hope that things will go well for my life, right? The expectation that my life will go great, I will not have problems in it, that leads you to disaster, right? So anytime you find yourself saying, this is what I expect, or if somebody even traps you with it and says, well, what were you expecting? Right? If you fall victim and take that bait of this is what I was expecting, you're only admitting your own immaturity, and that's okay. I do it too. I've been studying this for the last year, this whole expectation aspect. And that's where I came across this a year ago, and I was like, whoa, that is profound. I can be so much happier if I learn not to expect, if I learn not to have expectations, but I learn to have hopes. Now I can meter better how I feel if it doesn't go as expected, and I can look at the situation and I can learn from it, right? So I'll give you an example that happened today on that. So here I was working on my thriving capabilities, right? And I've got these great meetings coming up. I've been really excited to meet with this company for a while now. Okay, I don't want to name names because the people connected to this there's somebody who royally messed up today, and I don't want to put that on them. I get it, and it caused some problems, but I went on this call as a prospect for this particular company that's great with brand growth. And so I'm looking to work with them. I think they would be a great fit to help me in areas where I'm not as strong in terms of branding and getting your message out there. They just have super strengths that are very different from mine. So I've been really excited about it. Well, the person who took my call today was a former employee of mine. Not one I wanted to see, not one who wanted to see me. What? Like, Jackson, you got people that don't like you? I got a lot of people who don't like me, okay? A lot of people do not like my boldness and direct nature, right? And this particular person, so he gets on the call and I'm like, hi, how you been? He steamrolls me, goes right into the whole pitch thing, and doesn't even want to say hi to me. And I'm like, great, this is gonna go well. And I try to talk to him, and he's he's so obsessed with this idea of fear of missing out, like as a sales tactic, which is why he didn't last more than a day at my company. He's so driven by the fear of missing out and the nature of surviving that he couldn't ask questions that I could relate to, and he felt like I was trying to be dismissive, but I wasn't. He was asking questions like, "All right, so tell me about your struggles. What's struggling with your business right now that we need to fix for you?" And I'm like, well, that's not really the purpose of my call. Well, just tell me about the struggles. And I'm like, well, I was like, I got a lot of things that I've struggled with, but that's again irrelevant from. Well, why don't you go ahead and tell me what you've done that hasn't worked? And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, so for what time frame? I didn't say oh my gosh yet. I did later because he kept pushing on things like this, and I was like, listen, I'm really excited to work with your company because I think y'all can help us scale to the next level. And we're already scaling really well. A lot of things are going well. And he could not grasp that concept. He's like, yeah, but you got to have problems somewhere. And I'm like, I do. I certainly have problems. I got things I have to learn. But in relation to why we want to work with you, it has nothing to do with that. And he's like, well, just tell me from the beginning what things you've done for marketing that haven't worked. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is painful. I said, listen, LeBron James, he does not buy a new car because his other 10 cars don't have good engines. He buys a new car because he wants a new car. It has nothing to do with the other 10. I'm in a position where my business is scaling. We have distribution happening. We have people booking appointments to me. I didn't go into too many details, but I was like, we're good, but we want to add to it. And he just could not grasp it. He ended up saying, listen, it doesn't sound like you're a good fit for us at all. And he hangs up on me. Whoa. I was like, I was a little bit mad. That wasn't the full conversation. I had my moment where I was like, dude, you are not hearing me. And I need to get through to these individuals because I do. So I could have gone into survival mode and just like let him be the inhibitor of that relationship. Right. And said, you know what? I don't work this company anymore. It's all this company's fault. No, this was his fault. Let's put the accountability right where it belongs. I knew that may not be the representation of that company that they wanted. I knew that he has a power. He's not a bad person, and he could help certain people, and he's not a doctor, so it's not too bad, but he's not going to help anybody who has a thriving mentality. The only people he's going to help are people who are victims of circumstance, that are kind of powerless and have a fear of missing out because they're struggling so bad that they need somebody to inspire them and lift them up. And that's fine, but that's not who I was. So I couldn't relate to the way he was asking the questions, right? So I decided, you know what? This company means so much to me. There's so much of a potential opportunity here. I can't let this happen. And I don't want to make him look bad. So what do I do? So I had to do something. I do it quick because I've got too many things to do. I don't want to stress over it, but I do want to get my point across. So I went ahead and shot a video using their background, thanking them for all that they've done, because we do have past relationships, but they're doing so well that they're not taking any of their own calls right now. I'm not offended by that. Why would I be offended by that? That's great. They're moving towards that Tony Robbins position. That's a great thing. I'm going to support that. So I had to get this video across to them in a crafty way. And I knew it couldn't go through the email because that might not reach them. So I went ahead and I sent them both messages on Facebook individually. Well, ultimately the same message, letting them know I was sending the same message and giving the context of why their rep was probably mad at me and offended, because in reality, when he was on my team, his first day, he came into our company and we're in a sales meeting. He's brand new. He's supposed to be listening. He jumps up and he's like, that doesn't work. You need to try this instead. And this is how you should sell it. And I let him finish. And if he had said something right, I'd have been like, that is brilliant. That's what we need to go with. But what he said was completely unethical. What he said was completely fear of missing out based and would take advantage of only the weak, not actually helping somebody move forward. It was a snake oil sales technique. And I didn't say that, but I framed it in a way where I had to say, like, guys, we don't use that technique. That's not how we sell here. And if anybody does sell that way, that's a manipulation that is unacceptable. We work with people long term who we need to know, like, and trust us. They need to know that we're going to take care of their needs. We do what's best for people. We're not trying to trick people into buying from us. And I moved on with the training. Well, somebody was embarrassed. Somebody didn't like that. And I hated that it happened, but I had to make sure my sales team didn't take that concept and start implementing it. I had to correct it, and he was offended. So he left. He never called me again. And I ran into him for this. So he was probably pretty excited to take this call and exert his power again. And unfortunately, that backfired for him. We're not meant to exert power over each other. We're not trying to control each other. That is a survival instinct. That is an animalistic approach to relationships. And if you want to thrive, you've got to move beyond using force to actually using true power, which is centeredness, which is knowing who you are, which is following principles. And we're all learning it. You're not going to be Jesus. You're not going to be perfect at this. But let me share with you some of the ways that you can unlock real power real quickly. Okay. YouTube is one of my best friends for this, by the way. It's one of the fastest ways to meditate and unlock truths if you use it for that purpose, right? You can use it for a lot of bad things, but I highly recommend looking up developing patience, developing love, developing persistence, developing the art of consistency and reliability. You got to work on the virtues. I am not a patient person, to be clear. That is not my nature. I am not. I'm a persistent person by nature. And life has taught me to be very patient due to my continued persistence. And those assets, those virtues, they go hand in hand. They sound like opposites. They're not, because they're both virtues. There's a time and a place to exercise both, right? It's important to be patient with my child who won't put his seatbelt on. But it's important to be persistent that we need to go. We're going to be late if you do not get that seatbelt on. And children are the best way to learn virtues, by the way. I'm not saying go have kids just to develop virtues, but I can say that if you have them and you've been blessed with them, they will teach you over and over about those virtues, and you will fail miserably almost every day as you develop them, which is why it's so critical as well as a thriving individual. The only way to avoid the emotions that come with that failure is to accept it, is to learn that it's okay. It's not a bad thing to fail. It's part of life. In fact, if you're not failing, you're not growing. You have to be able to do that. So let's see. I want to go back to some of these comments. So great point. Sounds like he was fishing for problems versus seeking solutions. Daniel, you're 100% right. They have this worksheet they have you fill out, and I can't show it because, again, I don't want to throw anyone under the bridge or make anything dramatic, and I'll probably talk about them in the future. I can see that for sure. But their process is very good, and I filled that document out. I took a lot of time on it. It's a very intensive audit. And then it takes a lot for me to be willing to do that with how many people have amazing things like that. But he jumps on this call, and the first thing he said to me was, okay, so I can tell you didn't do any of the work for the worksheet. I hadn't even talked yet. It was like a pre-scripted robotic response, probably because he's talked to a bunch of prospects who didn't do their homework. But the problem with doing that is if you're always prepared to talk to your worst type of prospects, you're not going to be prepared to acknowledge and accept the best. I hear this all the time in coaches. If you hear this and you don't, I hope you fix this if you hear me say this, because it's one of the most disturbing things is how many coaches I'll jump on the phone with and they'll say, are you here to sell me? What's your angle? Right. And it has nothing to do with my script. It doesn't matter. Like people, or if they'll come up to you at a conference, like, all right, what are you here to sell? Whoa, like chill out. That's not how Tony Robbins walks up to people. And I keep using him as a reference. It's not how Darren Hardy greets people. It's not how Emmy greets people. It's not how Daniel greets people. It's not how Adam Tank greets people. They go into, hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. How can I help you best today? Right? They might be fast. They might need to move forward and get things done. And if you sell and pitch them, they might listen for saying, hey, that's a great idea. You know what? Let's get you talking to so-and-so. And they move on to the next person. Like, it's so great to have you. Let me sign that for you. Boom, and gone. But they're not walking up to people saying, what are you here to sell me today? You're just surviving, and I'm sorry if that's you. I'm not trying to make fun of you. I'm trying to open your eyes. I'm trying to help you see that you don't have to act that way with people, but you got to be grounded in yourself in order to not act that way. Savannah Kendrick, great to see you. I'm glad you're on. So let's keep going with this. And again, you can drop off anytime, but there's so many valuable points I want to talk about with this. So here I was, I get condescended to. Let's move beyond that. The thriving position, I reached out to them and I felt a little awkward doing it, but I was like, you know what? I need to get this done fast. I'm going to send them a video explaining delicately what happened and just planting a little bit of seeds about why that person might be hurt. I don't want him to get crushed. I want him to open his heart to get help, but I'm certainly not going to allow that one person to block my company from getting access to the value that could be incredible for my own prospects and clients. Get out of the way, right? I don't mind being passionate. I don't mind being fired up. I still love that person. I still care about them. I wish they wouldn't behave the way they're acting, but I'm going to set a clear boundary and I'm going to be very strong with who I am. And I'm going to make sure that I get the opportunity that I want to get. And you know what came of it? Instead of that company, like I was like, you know what? If they're all like him, they're probably going to use this opportunity to like feel bad and feel like Jackson's condescending. I wasn't. I was determined. There's a huge difference. And I got the response I wanted. I got a text message from the owner. I got a text message from one of their team members saying the team member would reach out. I could be offended by that. If I was a pretender, I would be. Why isn't the owner reaching out to me themselves? Again, that's a survival mentality. It's kind of pathetic, guys. Don't do that. We don't need to act that way towards other human beings. We can be better than that, right? So I almost said it. I'm going to say Christian Anatomy, all right, just so that I keep it confidential. But he reaches out to me via phone as I'm getting ready to text him back, and I play with him. You know, I say, "Hey, that was a faster method than texting me. Thank you." And he's caught off guard because he doesn't know what to expect. He's ready to apologize, right? So like, I'm so sorry this happened. I was like, you're fine. I was like, you're good. I was like, I'm not hurt by it. It's totally fine. He's like, I can't believe it happened. And I'm like, I know I'm in that position where it's like, good. This company does have the values that I thought they did. This company does care. Fantastic, right? So he's apologizing. I'm not going to leverage that. That would be the pretender thing to do, to manipulate it, to get what I want. Well, I hope you guys will do this and this for me and blah, blah, blah. No, let it go. Be the bigger person. Be the person that you want them to be. I shouldn't say bigger person. We're trying to be big people together. That's the point, right? So I'm still, again, working on my mentality with that in certain circumstances, right? We're all trying to be our best self, I hope. That's the goal. So here he goes talking to me, and we had a great conversation, a very short one. It's Friday. I want to get on to other things, this in particular, and go have a fun night. So I was like, you know what? I was like, let's meet. Are you open on Monday? We booked it for Monday. I said, let's start with a clean slate. It's totally fine. You know, I gave him a little bit of context as to why the person was upset, but I also let him know, I was like, but he's a good dude. I was like, you know, he made a mistake. I hope you guys like train him on it, but you know, like try to train him on it. But it doesn't have to be personal. We don't have to like ruin his life because of a mistake that was made. Let's try to learn from it. And if he's if he's so survivalistic, you know, animalistic in that nature and survival oriented, he's just going to keep getting mad and heated about this and continue to look out of control and not fix the problem. When in reality, in my past, I had these same lessons, guys. When I was a teenager was when I learned those types of lessons. And I realized, you know what? I was a bit of a jerk. Like I thought I was hot stuff. And it took me losing friends and getting lazy with sports to realize like, whoa, all these people are outgrowing me. And now I was kind of a jerk and I didn't have the friends I wanted at that time. And I had to start doing some self-reflection and accepting that, you know what, maybe I should make some changes. Maybe I should be more likable. Maybe I should appreciate people more. Maybe I should work a little bit harder too and not give up just because I got behind. And so he has an opportunity to do that. And if he chooses to do that, then he might be one of my best friends in several years. You know, we don't know how it's going to work out. But some of my best friendships came from experiences like that, where either myself or the person who I was working with decided to humble ourselves, and we decided to grow together, and we overcame those types of problems. So let's see here. Emmeline, so much wisdom. Thank you. I'm learning a lot from you today. I meant to be here. My call got pushed back, and this is actually the divine reason. Emmy, you're amazing. Let's see here. And I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll start showing these. This is why I admire you, Jack's brilliance with heart and passion to help others. Thank you. Thank you, Emmy. Profound. And Savannah, if you're still there, I'd love to know why this is helping you, you know, and guys, help me out too. What are some other ways that we can train ourselves to go from a survival mentality to a thriving mentality? What is it? What's helped you in your life? Or what questions do you have? If you want to be vulnerable, about it, feel free to, and I'll expand on it a little bit. I would be very happy to see some engagement and take some time for that. Um, and let's take a look. So while I'm waiting for those, I want to go back to that concept. Can you thrive for a moment? The key is like thriving is not something I don't think it's something you sustain 100% of the time. It's something that goes and comes. And the key is to learn how to juggle it, how to siphon it into you more often than not. Right. So you can, it's not just like, I'm not just picking on the people who, go to a conference and then fizzle out within an hour. We all I shouldn't speak for everybody. I can't speak for everybody either. That's something that probably frustrates people, but I don't like hyperbole, right? Maybe there is some God of wisdom on earth, in human form that knows how to thrive 100% of the time. I don't, right? And so when I read articles about neurolinguistic programming, how our brain works, and like Andrew Huberman, is an amazing doctor, or Dr. Todd Snyder, my business partner, like they know how real life is. They're willing to admit it. And if you look at whether it's celebrities or sports figures, whoever, they all go through ebbs and flows. So I was the guy who played Bane, the actor who played Bane. I saw an article or a video of him that talked about how he wears tattoos, because he's got a lot of fear. He's scared. He's very shy. If you know the actor's name, by all means, drop it in the comments. Tom Harden, I think. But I thought that was really interesting, right? Like that he himself claims he wears tattoos because it makes him feel like a bolder man. I don't think everybody gets tattoos for that reason, but perhaps there's some of us who wear certain things or do certain things like that. I remember, as a kid, I'd wear shirts like this, like I would wear shirts like this to elementary school because my sisters would dress me up for school. But I remember a girl making fun of me, and saying like, why do you always dress like that? And I felt crushed. Oh my gosh, my soul of souls, I was crushed. I felt I had a very low self-esteem. I was very hard on myself, and but I remember responding to her with, defensively a little bit and saying like, this is how the kids in middle school dress. And I went back to my being, but I remember being like torn by that, talking to my sisters about it and them saying like, don't Bo, they call me Bo, like, Bo, don't listen to her, don't listen to them. Like, you dress better than anybody else, you're going to be, so great someday. And even still, I grew up with a very strong inferiority complex. All right. And so I had this like survival mentality about my looks. And part of it was I grew up with 5 older sisters who also were very conscientious about their looks, right? Were they overweight or were they not? Did they have enough makeup on, etc. And I grew up listening to that and thinking, well, wait, if something's wrong with my 5 perfect angel sisters, like that's what they were to me, then my goodness, how much is wrong with me? And I struggled with that bad. How bad? How bad was I surviving? In kindergarten, I would go, this is embarrassing. That's why I'm sharing it. In kindergarten, I would go to soccer practice in jeans. Okay. In the middle of Texas heat. I'm talking like 100-degree weather, right? And everybody would ask why. I was like, I like jeans. But my mind was telling myself, my little 5-year-old mind was saying, my thighs are fat. I was worried that my thighs were fat. My best friends down the street, they were all very, very tiny in nature. And they were very fast because of it. Very good climbers because they didn't have a lot of weight on them. And I thought they were the coolest thing in the world. I thought it was amazing, right? And so here I am, and I felt like this chunky, heavy, fat kid that like was ugly and awful, and like I hated my curly hair, and I tried to comb it out, and I didn't like that it was blonde, and my mom said I cursed myself and turned black because of that, which is funny. But I was so self-conscious of like everything about my looks as a child. And it's not their fault, and it doesn't matter. It taught me great lessons, right? I learned through that experience and through overcoming that to learn how to appreciate the value of how I look and feel, right? I actually am very proud of how I look and feel. And I think it would be healthy if our society started to accept how beautiful you are as your own self, all right? Why can't we just be happy with how beautiful we are? Why can't we learn to see that? Why can't we encourage other people to say that? Right. And it's sad to me. I used to get hurt by people who thought I was conceited, and or thought that I was like all self-assured of myself, or felt like I was like, it felt like I was the best looking person in the world. I've never once felt that way. But it did take me way too long to get to the point where I could accept that I'm a good looking dude and I'm happy with it. And when somebody says like, "Well, like, how can you say that about yourself?" I'm like, "Why don't you say it about yourself? What's wrong with your looks? You look awesome too. Like, you're fantastic looking. Look at your eyebrow shape. Look at your guns, dude. Like, you could afford to give me some muscles, please. Like, I can be happy with myself as a skinny fat guy. I can think I look good. It's so important to accept yourself. It's hard. It's easy to say. It's hard to do. I watched a great TED talk on that the other day too. So let's see here. Be grounded in yourself, Emmy. Such powerful words. You might be leaving. I got it, man. I hope you guys follow up and ask Emmy. If you get a chance to follow up and ask Emmy, how are you so grounded in yourself? You get some powerful words of wisdom. That lady loves herself, and she expresses love to people so quickly and with so much sincerity. She genuinely loves people. It's amazing, right? And I know people who are scared of that word, and that's okay. That's a survival instinct. But learning to move to, like, who do I love? How do I love? What does that mean to love? To use the verb love, not to receive love, right? Not the relationship form of love, but in terms of like a intimate relationship between spouses, but like to love the person who's giving you your food at McDonald's line, right? What does it mean to love them? And what things are appropriate to show them or to do for them that shows them that you love them in a more holistic way, where you're saying, I appreciate and honor who you are and what you do. Okay, my food was late and it was cold. Do I have the patience and capacity to be forgiving, but to also set a healthy boundary? It's my food, and it's food that's meant to provide nutrition in my body. Do I have the capacity to go and confront them in a non-conflict way, but in an assertive way, and say, I really appreciate all that you've done. I appreciate the help. I know that people are not nice to you guys. Would you please mind making my food again? It's cold, and I would really like to enjoy this. Sometimes you will get scoffed at, and you will find yourself in survival mode because of it sometimes, or you will react. Sometimes you will be able to take it, and sometimes you won't get what you want, and they'll say, deal with it. And maybe it's better to walk away and deal with it. You certainly don't want to go into survival mode where you react and create a catastrophe of a problem. You don't need to go hurt the owner by leaving a bad review. There's so many ways that we can show love in ways that are holistic, and don't have to do with the the intimacy aspect of love, and being a spouse. And it's taken me years to figure that out. And it's taken me years of practice and trying to understand those virtues. And I hope you do the same. If something's helpful to you, please, leave it in the comments. I'd love to know. How do you sustain it? Back to that concept: practice, practice, practice. We learned to crawl by effort, trial and error. We learned to walk by falling, right? Getting up, falling, taking steps, tripping, falling, right? You got to practice it. You can't hide from conflict and expect growth. That's flight mode. And if you're stuck in flight mode where you always fear the conflict, then you're not going to know how to overcome situations. If you get good at bottling things up, yeah, you're going to get good at bottling things up. Maybe you'll expand the size of your bottle and your ability to withstand and hold a bitter feeling without people recognizing it. But are there other ways to cope and deal with that might be healthier for you? Possibly. Have you ever seen arm wrestlers? Right? An arm wrestling competition, a lot of them have like a massive arm, and they got an arm that's fairly normal. And that's cool. I'm laughing because it's funny. And if they're offended by that, they're in survival mode, right? But if they're confident in who they are and what they do, and that's what they're excited about, they'll probably learn to laugh at themselves with me. Right? They'll probably learn to say like, yep, this one, I cannot put in the heart monitor machine. And this one's my heart monitor machine arm, right? They'll find something creative and cool to say that helps you know that they're completely comfortable with their out of balance strength, right? So don't be so, I should say don't, but I invite you to look at how you can be less defensive about who you are. And part of it has to do with accepting the reality that you're somewhat married to things that people criticize about you. Some of it has to do with also being able to recognize when somebody's criticizing you because it's a self reflection. They feel that way. They might say, "Oh my gosh, how could you be so stupid?" And in reality, they feel stupid. They feel that internally. And they're not trying to tear you down. It's just their pattern of behavior to protect themselves in order to feel smart because nobody's taught them how to actually feel smart, and how to appreciate the value that they bring to this world. So I can tell there's a few people that this has helped, and I'm super grateful for that. That absolutely makes these messages super worthwhile. I'm excited to go on my weekend. My son's getting baptized this weekend. I'm excited about that. It's his choice. He's making it. He's been waiting for far too long. Actually, he's been asking us for this for almost 6 months now. So it's cool that that's coming together. And yeah, I'm gonna go spend some time with family for the weekend. And if you are, entrepreneur looking at expanding your brand, and the power of your brand, then consider contacting us. We have this thing coming out called the Power Launch. I'm aiming for the June 22nd. You never know what can happen between now and then, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be the launch day, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. I am so excited about it, and we're going to be bringing on 6 clients for it. That's it. We've got a couple people who are already aware of what we're doing with it that are super intrigued and possibly onboarding sooner to be beta testers. And I'm excited for their feedback too. But it's out of this world. I've never launched anything this cool before and this powerful. So stay in touch and keep an eye on that. Feel free to meet with us about it. In the meantime, you probably have my calendar. If not, reach out to me. Savannah, let's throw this on the screen. I resonate with what you're talking about. I've been working on myself personally, spiritually, intellectually, and love myself for the last 2 years and really recently started my own business. I want to run my business with honesty and integrity in all levels. Your talk is very inspiring. I appreciate your perspective because you're amazing. You always have been. I've always seen it. And I hope you can always continue to see and feel that. I say that with hope because I think sometimes we all fall from that. I do. Sometimes I don't feel amazing. Sometimes I find myself back in that moment where I need others to lift me up, but you have a special soul and a special heart. And growing up with all brothers, the exact opposite of me, was probably the exact opposite type of lifestyle. And yet you all have, an amazing relationship too. And you came out, with certain characteristics and virtues that I've seen. I'm not going to put you on stage and talk about all your life. Don't worry. But there's certain things that, certain virtues, certain moments in life where we had conversations or I saw things and I was like, all I could see was divinity. And that is true. So keep being your awesome self. The rest of you, don't hesitate to reach out. It's probably been a long time since I've talked to some of you. Nothing stopping you from calling me up and saying hi. So feel free to do so. Love you all. Have a fantastic day. Thanks for your time.